if we had not been canceled, I'm convinced of this, then Gerald Kieschnick would have won what would have been a fifth term in 2010. Because
fourth term.
A fourth term in 2010. He might still be synodical president today because, and this is a little technical, the restructuring that he did during his last two terms of Synod was just phase one. There was a plan to move on to phase two and basically make every congregation just an affiliate of LCMS. That it would have just greatly reduced the districts. They were planning essentially to rewrite all the district lines. And
I think the bigger issue was they were going to give more congregational representation to bigger congregations. If that had happened, we would not see the Missouri Synod today. If the bigger congregations, rather than an electoral college kind of approach, a popular vote, for lack of a better term, just because the bigger churches have more people, had that happened, rather than one vote per congregation, things would have been different.
Very, very different.
We might not be here today.
What do you think his motivation was for doing that?
Well, I got to hand it to Gerald Kieschnick. He's a political genius. And he is. He knows how to accomplish things. And so I cannot speak to his motivation in any way whatsoever. He had a picture of the Missouri Synod that was, I think, probably far more favorable to entities like the ELCA. Theology was not a huge priority for him. I think he kind of thought it got in the way of the mission. And so I think he could have, if he wanted to, have remained as, had he been given the chance to implement the next phase of restructuring, he could either remain as synodical president for life, or, because that's just the political reality, if he had the larger congregations pouring in votes for him. And or he could have easily chosen his successor to continue that path. It would have looked very, very different. I'm not saying that the cancellation of issues, et cetera, would have, in a political sense, I think it would have meant Jerry Kieschnick is elected in 2010. Does that mean Matt Harrison's never elected? No. But it would have happened by a different means, I think. Because and it would have come from the lay people. But what would have happened in that case, and I can't speak completely to hypotheticals, I think it would have been, had Jerry Kieschnick been reelected in 2010, a lot of confessional Lutheran congregations would have left the Synod. My own congregation at the time was planning to do it.
Really? Yeah.
We had already made preparations to say we're done. And I don't know how many. Maybe, I think if I was being generous, I'd say a third, but probably not that much. So the Synod would look a lot different these days. All this was, it was just a dumb decision taken by the then leadership of the Missouri Synod that had bigger consequences than they could have anticipated. And so, and we were just along for the ride.
What's the old adage? Like, what is it? Keep your enemies
close.
Friends close.
Your friends close, enemies close.
Yeah. And as long as we were under the LCMS, we were limited in what we do. Now, trust me, we were talking about worship. We were talking about communion practices. We were talking about the service of women in the church, but we were still couldn't be too specific, like put LCMS names to those things. We could talk about evangelism, but we couldn't talk about Ablaze, the big evangelism program at the time. There were certain things we couldn't say. So by keeping us under their thumbs, obviously this is hindsight. They had a little more control. Now they have no control.
It almost seems like this is just kind of a symptom of underestimating the kind of conservative and confessional nature of the Synod. Right? Like they underestimated you guys. They didn't think that you had the presence you did, they didn't think you had the listeners you did. But it seems like that was probably just one aspect of a larger picture where they were underestimating what the LCMS really was. And they were kind of blinded perhaps by, I wasn't plugged in during this time frame, right? But it seems like those kind of movements have a certain naivety of what the people, why people are part of the Lutheran Church, what it is, and they kind of become intoxicated with change, you know? So it seems like you guys were kind of a microcosm of that larger picture.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of describing it. I think also underestimating the lay people in the Missouri Synod.